morning and welcome to Morning Movie News. Now, my Christmas movie of choice is probably going to be The Wolf of Wall Street, which, as I reported, is being pushed to the Christmas release date because it's just not ready yet. However, some people might want to choose Justin Bieber's new documentary, Believe, which was recently announced to be getting a Christmas Day release. Now, there's a lot of interesting factors at play here. First of all, it's being released by Open Road Films, not Paramount, which did the first film. It makes you wonder why, because, the first film was successful, Never Say Never, so one has to wonder maybe Bieber's people wanted a bigger cut of the profits. It's just, why would they go smaller? Why would they go to a smaller distributor? But John Chu, who directed Never Say Never, is returning, and he did such a good job there, remember, that Paramount gave him the G.I. Joe sequel gig, and he's making a third G.I. Joe. But not before he makes a second Bieber documentary. Who'd ever thought there'd be a second one? What's the point of this documentary? Well, they say it's to tell Justin's story, but of course we already learned his story in Never Say Never. But I think very clearly this is the continuing into adulthood portion of his story. I think they want to try and make it very clear that Bieber's no longer the little boy who was discovered on YouTube, but is like a legitimate adult star. I don't know about legitimate, but he's an adult rock star, all right. He's been making crazy headlines, of course, with losing a monkey to the German authorities, to having his bodyguards carry him up the Great Wall of China. And it makes you wonder, though, with this documentary coming out, were all these antics just stunts for the documentary to try and make it exciting and interesting? Or is he actually like this now? Which, either way, I mean, he is getting headlines, and it's almost like he's using the same tactic that Miley Cyrus is using, only not as successfully. I guess a male Miley Cyrus isn't quite as appealing, or I guess he just isn't going out there enough. But I saw the first Justin Bieber documentary, against my will, I might add. It was someone's birthday, and they really wanted to watch it, and I was like, oh, please, anything but that, but they really wanted to. So I suffered through it. It was okay. I mean, I think once you see one of these concert documentaries, you've kind of seen them all. And I don't think Justin Bieber, I mean, there might be some believers watching this, and I apologize, but I just don't think he has really, enough, there isn't a lot going on underneath, the baseball hat, or underneath the stash, as he has in his trailer, talking about how, in the movie trailer for this, how he's got a mustache. Isn't he an adult? I mean, he can be amusing. I think, he seems like a really nice person, but I don't think he's a fascinating figure worth two behind-the-scenes documentaries. I think the first one was a good idea because he was such a phenomenon in the way he was discovered, but, now, I don't know. But I have to hand it to him, or at least to his team, because they have a very good way to promote the film. Every Monday, I think it's like 10 weeks until the film's release for Christmas, Justin Bieber will be releasing a new song. And he's already released, I believe, 2 or 1, but they were instant hits. So he still got it, at least with the iTunes crowd. So good for him. And Miley, your idea is so good that you seem to have some copycats. So I'm interested to know what you guys think. Did you see the first Justin Bieber documentary? Would you see a second one? Do you feel that Justin Bieber is growing up to be an adult? I feel also, interestingly, with all the photos I see, as he becomes more of an adult, he just becomes more of a Michael Jackson ripoff. Which, by the way, that was a very good concert documentary. This is it. It was very interesting to see the precision and the professionalism with which Michael Jackson worked. And as having seen also the One Direction, concert movie, I've seen a lot of these. Again, all of them, for this show, except for that one was a birthday one, but I reviewed One Direction, and none of these people are the professionals that Jackson was. So interesting compare and contrast. So that's the first story of the day. The second, I'm so happy for Henry Selick. He has landed another directing gig, but even better, it's going to be a live action one. He's going to adapt a popular children's novel called, let me check here, A Tale Dark Grimm. And he's doing it for Film Nation, which is another small distributor, similar to Open Road, which is distributing Justin Bieber's picture. You can see with the proliferation of distributors, they're getting more choices for talent, which I think is always a good thing. But Henry Selick in particular, I'm so happy for him to be moving on, because this man's been burned so many times, and he's so talented. For instance, I feel he didn't get enough credit for what he contributed to both The Nightmare Before Christmas and James and the Giant Peach. Tim Burton gets all the credit for that, but of course Selick was a major creative force there. And for Coraline, of course, he came back very strong. That was a very good film. I remember seeing it in 3D in the theater. It was excellent. I still feel it's Leica's best film to date. But Pixar being like, wow, Disney Pixar was like, wow, we lost him. He made Nightmare Before Christmas for us, and now he's helping Leica. So they lured Henry Selick back away from Leica, broke his ties with that company, only to drop him a little bit later because they were at an impasse creatively, and also apparently scheduling-wise was the story. So Selick was left studioless once again, which was very tragic. So I think it's great that he's getting another opportunity. I'm interested to see what he does with live action because he's so stylized. But he could be a director like Wes Anderson. I mean, just because you have a live action film doesn't mean you can't really heavily stylize it. However, I hope he's aware of how difficult the transition from animation to live action can be. Just ask Andrew Stanton from John Carter, although I liked John Carter. But I think that beyond creatively, John Carter was plagued with a lot of budgetary and technical concerns because of Andrew Stanton's lack of live action experience and the lack of live action experience in the team he brought with him from Pixar to make the movie, that they really had too high of a hurdle to overcome at all with the live action film, no matter how good it was. And Brad Bird, of course, had more success with Mission Impossible Ghost Protocol, but he was heavily supported by an experienced crew that had live action experience. So he really needed to have his hand held. So I hope that Film Nation is putting Henry Selick in a good place, and I'm very excited to see this. I like dark children's stories. When I was a kid, they stuck with me the most, and they still really appeal to me a lot. I really like that aspect. I think it makes for more sophisticated entertainment. So that's the second story of the day. The third story is that Darren Aronofsky has run into problems with NOAA. It's run aground. It's no longer at sea, or maybe it's lost at sea, because basically they've tested the film. It's a religious film. Obviously, it's a story about the Bible. I mean, it's from the Bible, the story of Noah. But they've tested it in front of Christian audiences, Jewish audiences, and the general public, and everybody had problems with it, apparently. Now, Paramount won't share what those exact problems are, but they've said, oh, we're working on it, don't worry, everything's fine. This is the natural process. But that's not keeping whispers and rumors from popping out of the woodwork, saying that Aronofsky is just not used to working on a studio picture, and that he's totally off the reservation, and he's just not being very cooperative. But from what I'm hearing about the other problems, they could have been stopped a lot earlier. So basically, I'll break it down for you. As I said, it's a story from the Bible. It's meant to appeal to a religious audience. But Aronofsky has decided to take it more in an environmentalist message, to say, and he's been quoted as saying that Noah was the first environmentalist. So I can understand where Aronofsky's coming from there. I think there is a growing number of people in this country and the world. They're atheists, or if not atheists, don't subscribe to organized religion. But still, at the same time, there's a huge religious component that still exists. And if they're not going to see a movie based on the Bible, who will? I think to alienate them is a mistake. And it would be nice if they could kind of try and draw a line down the middle that everyone could enjoy. The other big problem is the budget. It's way over its $125 million budget, apparently. Just like it's difficult to transition from animation to live action, it's difficult to translate from indie films to mainstream high-budget films. There's a lot at stake. You can't really afford to make mistakes. And also, one of the big things is that apparently in Noah, there's not a single real animal. They're all digitally animated, and on top of that, the animals are tweaked, to show how they were before they evolved to their current standing. And also, apparently, the rumor is that there are some fantasy animals as well that died off. Although I don't know if any of you saw that 18-foot, like from Flotsam and Jetsam from The Little Mermaid, like an eel or something that was found off the coast, I believe, of California. Super creepy. It was on the Today Show the other day, and my mom actually saved it to show me, and it was weird. And she brought up a good point. My mom said, it makes you wonder perhaps that when they say about mythical creatures like the Loch Ness Monster and stuff, maybe they do exist because this particular animal, they said, or fish, lives very deep in the ocean and doesn't usually come up. This is rare. But it makes you think that maybe they did see this stuff back in the day and they wrote about it and we just don't have it anymore. So I do, as I said, I respect where Aronofsky's coming from, but he has to be a shrewd businessman. He has to play ball at the studio. He has to be on budget. And he has to understand that if you're making a movie about the Bible, you have to appeal to the people who read the Bible. Look at how much success Mark Burnett has had with his Bible miniseries, which is getting a theatrical release with some extended cuts. And I think that probably will do very well. And I think The Passion of the Christ was a great example, Mel Gibson's film, of something that appealed to both religious and non-religious people. I think it was very realistic, and it made you feel how this could have actually happened, yet it still spoke to what Jesus is supposed to stand for. I'm a big fan of that movie. All right, so those are the 3 stories of the day. Today's question is from, sorry, I had so many notes today, it's all the way down here. It's from Lewis and Yugi. Lewis and Yugi. Sorry if I mispronounced it. And it says, question, Grace, do you think any quote-unquote respected actor should play the role of Christian Grey from 50 Shades of Grey? Because from what I've heard, they're having a hard time finding a replacement for Charlie Hunnam, and the book is basically porn. It is basically porn, and not even just regular porn, like BDSM porn, twisted, really weird, misogynistic porn. But, it has a big audience, and, NBC Universal is insistent that they are going to move forward with this. And there actually were some reports yesterday that there was a big, company town meeting, and for some reason, it really is, pressing on the minds of NBC Universal employees that 50 Shades of Grey will be released. I think that's funny. I mean, I know they gave E.L. James a lot of money for the script, but I'm not under the impression that there's a tremendous amount riding on it. But the inquiring minds at NBC Universal demanded to know from their higher-ups, and the higher-ups said, don't worry about it, we're very close to casting the role, and the movie will come out as planned in 2014 on that August release date opposite Guardians of the Galaxy. They didn't add the Guardians of the Galaxy part, but I'm just reminding you of that ridiculous matchup that could potentially be hurtful to Guardians of the Galaxy. As for if they could get a respected actor, I was thinking about that myself. I think it's almost impossible at this point, unless this is where it gets expensive. Because after Charlie Hunnam, who I felt was really on the line, because he hasn't really made it as an actor, he's done really. I guess they could just go find an actor on the BBC, because what they can get away with on the BBC is amazing. There's apparently no censors in the UK. They have some crazy stuff on their TV shows. And then Charlie Hunnam, of course, comes from British television. But I think that after Charlie Hunnam very publicly turned it down, who wants to pick that back up? It's like, not it, and everybody else doesn't want it to be it. But I don't know what they're going to do. They could go the route of a porn actor, but they don't have a strong enough actress. I mean, like James Dean, I believe spelled D-E-E-N, who was in Canyons with Lindsay Lohan. I mean, that's a route they could go, but you can see how that movie flopped. And I think Dakota Johnson just really needs a bigger name for this to do well, or else it just becomes some weird art piece from Sam Taylor Johnson. We'll see what happens. I mean, I really can't fathom anyone taking the role. I agree with you. I don't see how a respected actor could follow up on Hunnam, who dropped out really, last minute. And apparently the word was he was giving a lot of notes on the script because he has some writing experience. So if Hunnam's giving notes, that means the script isn't even in good shape. So you have a situation where you have badly written porn, and who wants to be attached to that? Opposite an actress who isn't well known, and it's basically nepotism, who's, Don Johnson and Melanie Griffith's daughter. I mean, the thing just sounds awful, actually. So, I mean, I don't know what they're going to do. I think maybe at this point, the best thing they can do is go for an unknown, a respectable unknown. By that, I'm meaning not from the porn industry. Just get someone who really wants to be an actor and is cool with extensive nudity and graphically simulating sex. That just, wow. I mean, he will get a lot of publicity, whoever it is, and that person could hope they turn into the next Robert Pattinson, maybe. And, Robert Pattinson, for all his complaining, is certainly better off having played Edward Cullen. So what do you think? Write your thoughts down below about all of today's stories and the viewer question, and what you'd like to see covered on Monday, and any other questions you might have. Thanks for watching. Bye.